Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bywire News Interviews. My name is Michael O'Sullivan, and I'm speaking today with Zalatimo, who is, of course, the CEO of voice.com. Thank you, Salah, for giving up your precious time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it, and welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
No problem. So to kick things off, can you describe to us what voice.com is and how is it different from other social media networks like Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn?
Voice is a social media platform that stands apart from the rest of social media because its focus is on bringing together real people to discuss real topics and real news, and to have real engagement. And the emphasis, as you can see, is on realness, because we believe that there are a few core problems with the today's social media that are very, very fundamental. The first and the largest is the fact that they are overrun by fake accounts and by bot farms and by burner accounts. Would you believe that in the last 2.5 years, Facebook has removed 10 billion fake accounts from their platform?
I had no idea. That's crazy. No wonder they're still growing. No wonder they're still growing.
Because you would think that the most accounts they can have is 7.8 billion, because that's how many people there are on Earth, and that would be including giving every newborn an account. However, they've somehow far surpassed that number. And so I think that highlights some of the real issues that we have today with social media. And this is why people don't know what's real and fake anymore. This is why social media is dividing us, because it's corrupted at its core. And so that's the first major difference between voice and Facebook. And quite frankly, it's the difference between voice and all social media. If you were to go back in time to say, okay, reset, we're going to go back to 2004 or 5 and start Facebook from scratch, I'm pretty sure it would be unanimous that we should require it to actually verify people are people. And so we have the luxury of being able to do that now, 15 years later, and that's why we decided to build something from scratch, because it's a foundational challenge that these platforms have today. The second thing the second major difference is the business model. Now, Facebook and Twitter and all of social media are purely advertising driven. So what that means is they are incentivized to track your activity all over the web and to harvest all of your personal data. Because when you say you're an advertising driven platform, your actual product is people's personal data. So it is very, very difficult to imagine any real changes in behavior on the platforms that we have today with that fundamental reality remaining in place. So again, if you were to go back in time and you want to create a more fair and equitable social media platform that actually has its users' interests at heart, you would have to say, well, that it can't be advertising driven, because that inherently sets the platform against its users. So at Voice, our solution to that is tokenization. And the advent of digital currencies has really enabled, for the first time, a new business model for media, as opposed to the subscription and advertising two-trick pony that it's been for a long time.
How exactly will the voice tokens work? What are the tokenomics of the platform? And why did you choose to incentivize your audience in this particular way?
A token especially in this context, has some profound implications and benefits. Now, when you tokenize attention on a platform like Voice, what it means in practice is that when you like something, you are giving it a token, which turns that action into a transaction. And when you do that on a blockchain, it creates then an immutable record of that transaction. So you have hit a few birds with one stone here. One, you now have a transparent and immutable database that anybody can view. So that goes a long way towards regaining a lot of the trust that people have lost in social media. But more importantly, it serves as a universally aligned monetization path. So let me try to say that in simpler terms. the fact that everybody gets a token and everybody will be rewarded through that token, and the value of that token is driven by the amount of engagement that we have on our platform. So demand for the platform creates demand for the token, which increases the price of that token. So with that dynamic, it means that everybody in the ecosystem wants the same thing. They want that token to increase in value. So the platform, the users, the publishers, in the future, some advertisers, it is truly a unique way to align all interests. And I think that is fundamentally different than what we see today, where both Facebook users and publishers and advertisers are up in arms, are furious at the platform, and are literally calling the CEO by name to do better.
Yeah. So are you concerned then that incentives to drive opinions and comments are in fact going to drive incentive-based opinions, discussions, and discord, rather than, say, authentic discussions? So what I mean by that is the risk of being outvoiced, losing or winning tokens is kind of like a form of gambling, right? And some could argue that that's the antithesis of what the ethics surrounding the voice social communication revolution are all about. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you took this in a very simple way, and you said, okay, here's a bunch of tokens, and you have to start putting some bets down on what you think is going to get the most engagement. Well, and you would quickly find people pursuing clickbait and extreme positions in order to kind of game that system. Absolutely. That would be the risk if we went out and did something very, very simple like that. I would say what you're describing sounds a lot like what current social media does, which are likes and shares, right? You're trying to, and even on platforms that give out karma for your engagement, you are definitely pursuing extremity. And so when we talk about social media 3.0, which is where I see voice, it's not just about adding a simple token. It's something we refer to as tokenomics. It's actually a full economy. And it's an economy that has checks and balances. It's an economy where you are held accountable, where you might gain tokens, you might lose tokens. And so it's in that sense, that you could say it's gambling because you might win and you might lose, but I would say it's more like a stock market or an equity market or any established marketplace where you stake things behind things you believe in that you believe have potential. You take calculated risk, and sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. It's not gambling like a coin flip, because that there is absolutely not just skill, but curating content, which is the way that you garner tokens, and really the way that you can earn the most tokens is by producing content that people engage with. Those are not coin flips. Those are concerted efforts, and those are calculated risks that people might take around them. So it's absolutely not a gambling site, just like and it's absolutely a marketplace and a full-on economy that is continuing to develop and become more and more robust. And when we see a abnormality or an unintended consequence emerge, the beauty of it is that we have mechanisms to be able to offset that, because again, it is a fluid economy.
So is voice.com a social media platform for social engagement and connecting with friends, family, and meeting new people? Or is it more a news platform designed for debate and discussion and discord? Because some have argued maybe trying to do both could end up failing at being either.
That's an excellent question. I'm reminded of when 10, maybe 15 years ago, in my career, when I would be consulting for companies or working at various media companies, there was a lot of discussion about what is a tech company. And is this a tech company? Is this a tech product? And here we are, in 2020, and it's quite a silly question because everything is a tech company, everything is a tech product. So I would say the same thing about media. Debating semantics we can do, but at the end of the day, what media is not social today? So it is absolutely a social media platform, It is absolutely a platform where you will share blogs, articles, points of view, and seek earnest engagement on that. So I can tell you that in the spectrum of what is traditionally known as social media today, it is less of a address book, and it's less of um, a, a banter back and forth between kind of witty banter, short form banter. It's also less of a kind of a place to anonymously engage on clever, witty, or funny content. It's also not a place where you're going to go network for your career. And so it does occupy a space unto itself, which is where real people engage at a community level about real topics. And so I think to try to pigeonhole it into what we currently know as social media today, I think is it's not very useful. I think I would think of it more as this is a place where people share authentically share their ideas, and hope and expect to get engagement from people in an authentic way as well.
Okay, it's a great answer. So now I'd like to try and get to know you a little more, Salah, if that's okay. So can you talk about maybe your parents, where they're from, where did you grow up, and did you have any struggles early on in life that sort of led you to where you are today? You know, what is your story?
Well, thank you, Michael. Most people forget about the person now when we're talking about voice. Um, so I grew up here in the U.S. I grew up in Pennsylvania. My parents were immigrants from the Middle East. They moved to a rural part of Pennsylvania, outside of Scranton, a town called Dallas. It has a population of 2,812 last I checked, along those lines.
Tiny.
It is a tiny town, but a beautiful town. I still have a lot of my closest friends in the world who came from there and still live there. And it's a place that I still call home. But I did leave Dallas for the big city for university. And I've been in New York City essentially nonstop for the past 20 plus years. I did some stints in a few other places, but this is where I've lived and grown up as an adult. And I spent my entire career in working in media and trying to build new products and build new companies. And I have a real passion for building things, and that is, that became obvious when I was a kid, and I started building computers in my room, and also doing building building landscaping projects, and whatever I can get my hands on. I've always been a builder, and that's what got me so excited about voice, is that I found an opportunity where they not just the media business, but I genuinely believe that society at large needs a better social media. Like it is maybe social media might soon displace traditional media as the fourth estate. It probably already has. And we need a better one. And we need one that's accountable. And we need one that reflects our society. In other words, we need one that is democratic in spirit, where people are able to engage in it and are able to hold it accountable. And so that really touches on a lot of my core values as a person. And
Mhm.
so it feels like the stars are aligning at this point in time for the need for this, the appetite for it, and the technology available to bring it to life. And so I'm very grateful for having met Brendan Bloomer and Dan Larimer at block.one, who brought that missing piece of the puzzle, which was that technology and that conviction. And so, here we are. And I think I'm 6 months in to what has already been a deeply rewarding and exciting journey. And I think the rest of this year will start to, it will, a lot of that will start to become outward facing as well.
That's fantastic. So, did you ever have any mentors in your life, any positive influences? And if so, what kind of impact did they have on you, both personally and professionally?
I, I am, I owe a great deal of my um, of what I've accomplished in this world to several mentors that have really had an impact on me, and it's something that I hold very, very dearly. Something, and I also try to pay it forward and pay it back. I mentor as much as I can myself. I will say, my My most impactful mentor of late would have to be Louis Dvorkin, who acquired my startup and was my manager at Forbes. He was the chief product officer there prior to me. And having somebody is at every point in your career, you're trying to develop a different aspect of your skill set. And it's really, I shouldn't even say in your career. I mean, that's true for life in general. So on a personal and professional level, and you know, going into a venture like Voice, where we are, literally trying to take on the biggest companies in the world and trying to do something that we believe is so important for society. I mean, it's a very heavy concept, and you've got to really, really believe in it, and you have to be able to balance your passion and your conviction with sound logic and reason. And because the day to day and the week to week and the month to month and the year to year are very, very different points of view. So having somebody in your corner that can help keep you grounded in one of those points of view, and in this case, that's what Lewis is for me, is very, very important. And it allows me to be able to kind of have a purview at each of those different levels, which is critical to being able to keep your ship headed in the right direction. So I absolutely am grateful to my mentors, and I hope to be a valuable mentor to others in their careers as well.
So Salah, what was the if any, what was the biggest failure you've had over your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I have not experienced a single failure in my life, actually.
I love it.
I'm 21 for 21. What can I say? Michael, I've gotten pretty good at failing. I got to say, it hurts the same every time. Never gets better. But when you learn how to use failure as fuel and as a lesson, it becomes very empowering to be able to take a failure. So I actually had, now I'll give you a quick little insight into my personal journey along these lines, which was, when I decided to really commit to building my own businesses, I felt that I spent a lot of my time in corporate America and as a consultant for some big consultancies, and I became very confident in my abilities to coach teams, not very confident in my ability to play on the team or to be the captain of the team necessarily. And so I went through an experience. I signed up for a charity boxing tournament because I had a friend who actually was a good friend of mine, my age, from that we went to school together, who was diagnosed with lymphoma, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. A
Very
young guy
sorry to
like
hear that.
that.
Very sorry to hear that.
Sorry, he's in full remission now, so
Oh,
he's doing great.
that's wonderful to
This was
hear.
about
Wonderful.
6 years ago. Thank you. And so I signed up for a charity boxing tournament to raise money for cancer research, and that experience, I trained. I literally trained every single ounce of energy I felt in the day was used towards training. Like if I at 7 p.m. felt like I wasn't tired, I'd start doing push-ups, sit-ups, and sprinting. If I at 9 p.m. before going to bed, I felt like I had some energy left, I'd go hit the punching bag. So it was a all-out like, Salah, you're either going to win this fight or you're not, but you're definitely not going to have any regrets. And I trained like an animal for 4 months and was successful in that. And it really was, it's an experience that I look back at and say, when push comes to shove, when you're in a ring and somebody's trying to kill you, not only can you survive it, but you actually can thrive. And so I look at those moments and say, even when you get punched in the face, um, you gotta, you can't let it phase you. And so the most powerful lesson I learned from my boxing experience was not how to punch, it was how to take punches, because it is very, very, very against your instincts to stare a punch down, to get hit by it and to not flinch. And that ultimately is what it requires to succeed as an entrepreneur, is that you are literally going to get punched constantly, constantly, constantly. And if you flinch, you're going to lose. So I view it as that.
Well, there's a great quote from Winston Churchill. Hopefully, I can remember it. He says, "Success is defined by moving from one failure to the next without a lack of enthusiasm." And I really believe in that. I think that's a great quote because it is failure
Absolutely.
after failure after failure until you hit your success point.
And I was going to say, you know what? That also implies something I truly believe in, which is the ability to survive. I think if you keep doing that and you do it for a long enough time, at some point it will hit. Some people get lucky and it hits early. Some people it hits late. It hits when it's meant to hit, but it's resilience at the end of the day.
Yeah, I completely agree. So to pivot back to kind of voice and to go a bit more into the kind of the detail about voice. So of course, the biggest problem facing any new social media platform, and there have been many who have tried and failed in this space, is reaching critical mass. If my friends are not here, why should I be there? How can voice.com ensure that it reaches critical mass and doesn't just become an excellent, expensive forum for tech-minded individuals like us to have a chat? So what I want to ask you is, what would you tell my mum to convince her to leave Facebook, which she loves, and to sign up to Voice?
Well, it's funny you say that because I say that to my own product managers as well. Every time we hit a bit of a challenge or a decision we're trying to make, I say, ask your mom or ask your father or ask your grandmother, because you're right. That is what it's going to take. So you're touching on it is a simple question with a complicated answer, unfortunately. There's a framework that I am very keen on, um, by a gentleman named Jeffrey Moore, and it's called Crossing the Chasm. And it's something that I really do believe in, which is you first work on your earliest adopters, and then your early adopters, and then there's a gap, and that gap is he refers to as the chasm, and you need to cross that large gap in order to get into the mass market. And so I view it as one step at a time. First, who are our early adopters? We get them on board. If we can demonstrate and prove and show that there is retention and that there is engagement and that it indicates some level of product market fit, and then we move up from there. And so right now we are just focused on our core, our base, our most excited and loyal users, and providing them an experience that they love and that they begin to really evangelize themselves. If we can do that, I'm not worried at all about the future. If we can't do that, there's no point worrying about the future.
That's true. If you can make us happy, then you can extrapolate afterwards. So I guess, what do you see then as the biggest challenges facing voice.com? And how do you plan to overcome them? And where do you see Voice in, say, 5 years' time from now, all being well?
I think the biggest challenge for voice is probably the making tokens a mass market concept. So it's very clear to me that we have what problems exist in media and social media. I've been in the depths of it, so it's very clear to me that we are filling a major need and that there is a gaping hole in the market today. Um, it's really more about, is the world ready for cryptocurrency, and how can we make them ready for cryptocurrency? Because what the real secret sauce for voice is tokens, and what tokens enable. And so that is what keeps me up at night, and that is what our entire marketing team is focused on as well, and our whole product team is focused on as well, which is, what do we do to make tokens as mum friendly as possible?
Mm. I love that. It's a great way to put it, as mum friendly as possible. Now, this is a very important question, and I need a sincere answer, Salah. Can you tell me the last time you actually used a whiteboard, and how did it make you feel?
I got to tell you, usually there's a mirror behind me that has become my whiteboard. Every window in my house is covered in dry erase markers. I feel hamstrung and handcuffed, and these 4 months without a whiteboard makes me feel like I haven't been able to express myself. I got to say, like, people have instruments, and artists have canvases. I express myself in whiteboards, and I do hope that one day there's going to be a museum of all the great whiteboard whiteboard diagrams and art that our great business leaders have put together. And I hope that one day I'll be able to take my kids to show them how powerful whiteboards used to be back in the day.
So how will voice.com moderate its content? And will there be any democratic community-led oversight to that process?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are, first and foremost, we will abide by the laws of the countries in which we are available. So it is, that's a given. Like we are, I want to make it very clear that we are not pursuing a fully decentralized, all out free speech platform.
Mm-hmm.
We do have values that we intend to uphold, and there are laws that we will absolutely abide by. Beyond that, there are a lot of things that are not captured by the law, and those are the items that today have really have become the sand in Facebook's gears. And the most obvious is hate speech. And so society has largely solved this with a mechanism known as democracy. And so it's astonishing to me that the most powerful platform in the world, which thereby makes Mark Zuckerberg the most powerful person in the world, has absolutely no accountability to anybody, let alone the users that are using that platform. So all of that power that is sitting in that ivory tower will get pushed down and will be in the community itself. Our users and the communities in which they are organized will vote on the ground rules that they want to uphold, and they will be empowered with tools to be able to enforce them as well.
So the community itself can remove a publisher or content itself if it was in breach of those rules. How will it work in reality?
So have you? There are. Let me give you an example. Are you familiar with Waze, the navigation app?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Have you been driving down the road and they tell you that there is a broken down car on the side of the road?
Yeah.
And then they'll ask you, is it still there?
Mm-hmm.
We view one of the ways that we would like to push moderation power back into the community is in a similar way. Is that if this piece of content was flagged as hate speech, do you agree, yes or no?
Mm.
And you can create a super majority of people so that you can determine, okay, this does look like it's hate speech. The ground rules for that community may be that all hate speech is permanently deleted, or all hate speech is hidden behind a pop-up. And this, so now you have a kind of like an explicit content advisory so that certain people don't do or don't see it. And so there's a lot of gray area and nuance with which we can approach content moderation that today is not really being conceived for one simple reason, because they are, it is a binary platform-led approach today.
So who actually owns the copyright of the content that's uploaded to the Voice network? And are you concerned about the liability for any illegal content published on the network? And what is your process for dealing with this in real time? I'm talking about bad videos, things like that.
Yeah, so we're a platform. We're not a publisher, so we don't review any of the content before it goes up. We don't take any liability for the actual content that is up there. However, anything that again is flagged as illegal, we will take action on immediately.
Okay, but who owns the copyright? Does Voice own the copyright, or does the original creator own the copyright?
The original creator owns the copyright, absolutely.
Awesome, awesome. So how decentralized is voice.com going to be or today? Is the content itself stored on the blockchain, or is it just a hash of the content? And why did you choose to not launch on the EOS Public Blockchain, also known as the EOS mainnet?
Can you, sorry, the first part of the question was...
how decentralized is Voice itself?
Okay, so the content itself lives in a database, but a hash of that content lives on the blockchain.
Okay.
So
So the content's
And
centralized, but the verification is decentralized, if you like.
exactly, exactly. Sorry, say that again?
So the content lives in a centralized server, and then the verification that that content is genuine is decentralized. So the hash is decentralized on your network, but the
Well,
content itself is stored centrally, right?
well, it's not decentralized because it is a centralized blockchain.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it is, but it is on a blockchain, and that blockchain is auditable by the public.
Hmm.
So the concept of this is an important point where people often conflate the existence of a blockchain with decentralization. There is such a thing as a centralized blockchain, which is basically one that we are running exclusively, and that's what Voice is today. It's a fully centralized platform, but
Hmm.
has several blockchains within it.
Okay, I see. So what would you describe then as the ultimate outcome for voice.com? How do you define success? Is it monetary, corporate valuation, daily users and engagement, or is it something more existential, like creating a better, freer, more truthful society?
Um, I the goal of the platform is to create an environment where we can uh, where we know that the content and the people that we are talking to and dealing with is real. The content that is being curated and produced is by real people and not by bot farms and not with the intention of manipulating algorithms. And it is a place where people turn to get authentic information.
Is voice.com intended to be a force for good in the world or a force to generate profit? And what I mean by that is, I understand your instincts are likely to suggest both, but given the corporate boards have a shareholders fiduciary mandate to deliver returns on investment, coupled with the need for infinite growth as a measure of continued success, how can voice.com not end up turning into the next well-meaning but heavily compromised social platform, making similar incremental compromises as those that came before?
We are not a public service company. We're not a nonprofit. We are not going to be um, a public benefit corporation. We are a for-profit entity, and we believe that for-profit does not mean for evil. And I think that is um, an unfortunate association that has evolved over time because there are companies that are evil, and the pursuit of perpetual growth is largely a public company challenge as well. So I think that question really is tied to whether we ever intend to IPO or not, which is a question I don't have the answer for. But that is one of the considerations when we say let's IPO. You're also saying we're going to pursue perpetual growth, and so that's part of the calculus, And where where we feel confident is that we've devised a business model that our profits are tied to the success of our users. And to me, that's the real innovation here. This isn't about pick one. Are you going to be good or bad? Meaning, are you profit or not? It's not at all. It's actually that our profit models today are flawed. And what we think crypto in general has the opportunity to do is to correct a lot of that. And when you apply that to a social media platform, we're very excited about the type of environment it will create.